weeks ago.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just so we're clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, here we are. Hello, world. It's Lee Kelson coming to you live from our Gold Coast studio. And once again, I have our special guest over in London. He's our intrepid roving innovation reporter, all things innovation, Nicklas Bergman. Hey, Nicklas, how are you?
Good morning.
Well, it's evening.
8 a.m. in London. I feel like a traveling correspondent. I've always wanted to be that. This is perfect.
That's good. I feel like you are our travelling correspondent. Last time we connected, you were in New York. This time you're in London. Are you based in London, or you just do a lot of work in London?
No, I'm just here for a couple of days.
Okay.
And we actually missed an opportunity in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago. You remember that? That's a different story.
We did, yes. In Lucerne. You're in Lucerne. What were you doing in Lucerne?
I had a keynote for an executive program at IMD, the management school there.
Right, okay.
It was foggy, but really beautiful setting.
Okay. And so, I mean, we did touch on the top 10 tech trends, I think, last time. And we touched on the Tech Storm book. How's your book going? Are you still selling lots of it, or you must be due for another one, are you?
Well, how the book is going, that's actually that you get to know 1 year after it's actually happening. So I'm waiting for some spring numbers here.
Right.
I don't think I can retire on that book, although it's doing quite well. I think people are appreciating it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed writing it. Looking at a couple of new things, since this book was a process description of how I relate to technology and business. So my next goal, my next book project would probably be to apply this process to a specific industry and or a specific technology. So right. I'm doing a couple of projects on AI.
Okay.
Now, and probably I think it's going to be something relating to AI in business. And the ideal, I'm not sure I should say this when you're recording this, but one idea would be to...
No one else says, just between you and me. Isn't that the joke?
Exactly. Two parallel projects, one on AI in business and one on AI and society, actually.
Right.
Because I meet a lot of politicians and policymakers, and they are really, they have no idea how to relate to artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data analytics, predictive analytics, all these different things.
Yep. And so tell me, I know you apart from the book and doing a lot of keynote speaking all over the world, for those that don't know a little bit about your background, why don't you share a little bit? Because I think last time we didn't really touch on that, but you've been a lifetime entrepreneur. You've been involved in a number of businesses, some successful, some not so successful, which is sort of how entrepreneurship goes.
Yeah.
So maybe just give us sort of a 60-second download on a bit of your background.
Yeah, I mean, I come from an entrepreneurial family. My family has been working in Eastern Europe a lot since the late 1960s. I was part of starting a company in Romania in 1990 together with my father and a group of people. And between 1990 and 2006, this company ran Volvo's business in Romania, Volvo cars and trucks and everything, focusing mostly on trucks, of course. I was part of that most of the 1990s. Then I shifted over, started working a lot more with technology investments, technology entrepreneurship. Really interesting, this Romanian venture that we started out in a country that had no commercial law. There was nothing set, no governance, nothing like that. Hyperinflation made you kind of... It wasn't that hard to move to tech and that uncertainty when you've been in a very uncertain country and environment for 10 years.
Yeah.
So for the past 15 plus years, I've been working a lot with early stage technology investments in different manners. Some good, a lot of them failures, a couple of epic failures, really. That's part of the game.
Yeah.
But very fun. I love it. I love the innovations, love the people. People that get all these crazy ideas that we try to commercialize.
Yep.
But a side effect of that is, as it's always money and finance involved, you get all these meetings. meetings. There's lawyers and bankers and all these. It just takes up too much of your time. So a couple of years ago, I started saying no to these meetings, quit a lot of boards, and now still work with my early stage investments, but also do some keynotes, wrote a book, part of a Washington D.C. based think tank called TechCast.
Okay, so I wanted to touch on that a bit. So what is that Washington think tank that you're part of, and how big is that? Is it a committee, or how does that work?
Well, it's basically from the beginning. 20 years ago, it was a research project at the George Washington University. It was originated by Professor Bill Halal, great guy, and he there's all these different statistical methods of looking into the future. And one is what we're using is a group of roughly 150 people all around the world, looking at technologies, trying to understand technologies, try to see when they will break through, what the impact will be, etc. And by pooling these resources together, we can make quite good predictions. I shouldn't say we, but the think tank can make quite good predictions based on what me and the other experts are doing, and that's really interesting. They have a really good track record actually from the past 20 years. So that's
right. Okay,
that's one perspective, and that's what I try to meet with a lot of people, see different perspectives. Actually, basically, just have fun.
sounds like a
finally after 25 years, I realized that that's the thing you should do.
Right, have fun, enjoy it. Absolutely,
yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So I think you're doing some stuff with the European Innovation. What's that all about?
Yes, I was invited to be part of the European Innovation Council high-level group, as they call it in the Commission. It's initiated. The European Innovation Council is an idea from Commissioner Moedas from Portugal, and he's in charge of research and innovation and the research budget of the European Union, 77 billion euros in the last budget. So he identified, or in the Commission, they identified that Europe is really, really good at actually doing tremendous research funding. So there's a lot of interesting, advanced, highly respected research coming out of the European Union and the funding that comes from the Commission.
Right.
But there's a challenge to take that to the next level, to take those innovations and actually scale them into sustainable large corporations. We've been falling behind there. So the whole idea with the European Innovation Council is to create vehicles to scale European tech companies and research-based companies. That's really interesting. Amazing group of about a dozen people. We meet every 2 months roughly, and done for the last year. We had a halftime report that was presented now at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos just a couple of weeks ago. Get some really good feedback, some good response on that, and now they're working on the next long-term budget for the European Union. And this is an essential part in that research strategy. Right. So it's really interesting to be part of looking on a European level and see how we can create a new innovation strategy and actually try to boost companies and innovation in the region.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I was just in Jakarta, as you know, a couple of weeks ago, and we tried to hook up. I think I was in Jakarta, you were in Lucerne in Switzerland, and we time zones got us in trouble there. But
there's an app for that.
There's an app for that. But one of the things that I got a sense in Jakarta was there's a real sense of a momentum, and I think, I say a burning platform, but like something. There's the sort of the idea that we've got to do stuff, we've got to do it quick, and we've got to move fast, and to use paraphrase Mark Zuckerberg, move fast and break things. And I found that was really different to some of the other parts of the world that I've visited, in particular in Australia. What's your perspective on that when you travel around the world and you visit lots of different places? I mean, what's your take on that?
I mean, to start with, I don't think Facebook is breaking enough things. I mean, they're under a lot of criticism.
I think they're broken.
To the trolling and the fake news and that. And of course, it has to do with the whole advertising model. But that's a different story. I think that when you look at the US, for example, they have a tradition of accepting failure. Definitely. 15 years ago in Sweden, that was impossible. You could never more or less come back after failure.
Right.
Today, in the startup world, there's a totally different perspective on that. I mean, we have startups that do kind of public failures, bankruptcies, closing down, they fire the CEO, and the CEO learns from that, bounces back, and then goes into another company, and that's okay. I mean, because you fire a CEO doesn't mean that that person is incompetent or anything. It just wasn't the perfect fit for that organization or that group of owners and management team. In another organization, it might as well be perfect. So that's a thing that we see has been very different, but I think it's changing now.
So more of an acceptance. Look, I don't know about this failure business. You know, I mean, I think there's a bit of an argument going on here in Australia. You know, should we, you know, fail and fail fast, and that sort of whole mantra that comes out of Silicon Valley. And then there's a school of thought that says, well, actually, if you prepare right and you put the right things in place, then you're actually mitigating that risk of failure. And I mean, it's okay to fail. You know, in Australia, you know, typically if a business got into trouble and, you know, you'd be bankrupt and you'd be out, you know, you wouldn't be able to be a director of a company for 3 years, and you were punished, and the system punished you, and the public punished you, and the media punished you. But there is sort of more of an acceptance there that we've got to have a go.